What's going on, everybody? We are back with another episode of the Escalate Podcast, episode 28 of the Escalate Podcast. And in this episode, I get to talk to a good friend of mine, Dac Cardona. He is an athlete in the sport of powerlifting as well as a coach in the sport of powerlifting. And he gets to sit down and discuss with me a little bit of some nuanced topics regarding the difference between 24-hour weigh-ins and 2-hour weigh-ins and the untested and tested federations of powerlifting, as well as how coaches and athletes can maintain and improve their soft skills. The soft skills is something that Dac is extremely passionate about, what it looks like to maintain good coach-client relationships, what it means to effectively communicate as an athlete and a coach, and how to respond to specific lifters in emotional states. All of these things are things that we'll cover in this episode. So whether you are an athlete or whether you are a coach, I believe that you are going to get something out of this. Now, before we do start this episode, I do want to always thank 110% for supporting both me and the podcast. Shout out to Kevin Papa. If you're listening to this, man, I love you. 110% is so much more than just a supplement company. It is a community and it is a mindset, and it is one that I am extremely proud to be a part of. If you have ever wanted to try one of their pre-workouts or any of their other supplements, which I highly suggest that you do, bar none, I believe it's the best tasting pre-workout on the market, as well as the most effective pre-workout on the market, because Kevin does everything that he can do to ensure that you are getting proper dosages of the ingredients that are in the scoop every single time. You can check out all of those in the description via a link. Their pre-workout, their sleep supplements, their focus supplements, intra-workout, pump products, all of those I highly suggest. And you can use code ROB at checkout for around 10% off of your entire cart. So please go check it out if you haven't before. And then lastly, before we do hop in the episode, I am currently taking in new clients and new athletes. If you have ever wanted to learn a little bit more about myself as a coach, my coaching system, or just about Escalate as a whole, I have my personal Instagram linked in the bio. You can just shoot me a DM if you want to set up an inquiry call, or you can just directly apply through the kind of inquiry form that I have linked as well. But with that, I am very excited to bring you guys episode 28 of the Escalate Podcast. Welcome, everybody. We're back. We've got another episode of the Escalate Podcast, and on this episode, I've got a good friend of mine. We can finally say that we've seen each other's faces and talked to each other in person. We've done a lot of DMing on Instagram and stuff like that, but I've got Dac Cardona here. He's a powerlifting coach. He's an athlete. He's a hell of a strong guy. Very, very good coach. I'll let him give himself kind of a formal introduction, so I'll let you take that away, man.
Yeah, so what's up, everyone? I'm Daniel Cardona, or Dac. That's what pretty much anybody in the powerlifting community kind of knows me as. It's my initials, nothing really special. But so I'm a full-time coach. I've been in the game I've been coaching for about 6 years. I've been a powerlifter for about 10 years. I'm a above average untested guy at competing. But primarily what I do is coaching. I would borderline say I'm more of a coach than I am an athlete at this point. But yeah, just really excited to be on here. Super excited because of some of the guys that have been on here are just insanely intelligent and excellent. And I think it's a really cool opportunity to be invited. I see this as an opportunity. I see this as like a way to, show kind of what I know. And I'm really excited for this. So it's nice to be here.
Yeah. Well, you're part of that club now. You're officially a guest on the podcast. You can join that. I mean, the way that and why I really love doing these episodes and the way that I do it is really just, it's a very selfish thing on my end. I just like talking to people, and I like hearing my own voice, and I'm like, I like powerlifting. Why don't I talk about that with people? And I can learn a lot of things and stuff like that. And so hopefully if you are listening to this, you'll get something out of it. Now, Dac, you talked about a little bit of you as an athlete. Obviously on the untested side, it's a little bit different than probably what a lot of the audience is used to.
Yeah.
And one of the first things that we really interacted about was a couple weeks ago when I reached out to you to help me with the recomp process of an athlete of mine over a 24-hour weigh-in. Now, I think there's a ton of information out there when it comes to the recomp process for a 2-hour weigh-in. If you go on Powerlifting Now, Sean has a video on it. There's multiple videos on it on YouTube. probably hundreds of Instagram posts to this point from, a plethora of
Yeah.
coaches. But I think that there's definitely a gap when it comes to these federations that do 24-hour weigh-ins, and it's at sometimes a completely different process. You can't just load yourself up like you would in a
Yeah.
2-hour weigh-in. You would get really hungry that night and then not retain any of the weight and then probably compete like shit.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to pick your brain about that a little bit. Now, when it comes to the 24-hour weigh-in, what is some of the biggest differences that you see outside of just the time difference, of course, that you see, and some of the strategies that you think people need to start implementing in that 24-hour weigh-in that they don't necessarily do right now?
Yeah. So obviously it's going to be a different game, and competitively it's not the same. And anybody who thinks it's the same is ignorant. Obviously a 2-hour weigh-in, you only get 2 hours to recomp, and you only get 2 hours to recomp healthily, which is like we see certain videos of like some athletes like puking and like just not exactly having their best day because they didn't recomp properly on the tested side. But when it comes, not I wouldn't say just the tested side, but the 24-hour weigh-in side and 2-hour weigh-in side. But I would say a big difference here is just understanding like just because you have 24 hours doesn't mean that you get the green light to kind of be an asshole with how you eat. Do as I say, not as I do. But a big thing here is like understanding that you're going to see on the untested side, you're going to see a lot more aggressive cuts. You're going to see like 20, 25 pound cuts, anything from like 10, 15, 20, 25, even 30 pounds. 30 pounds is really on the egregious side, but you'll see really, really big cuts. And when it comes to really, really big cuts, come really different recomp strategies because obviously recomping 30 pounds is borderline impossible. You're not going to be 30 pounds a week before and then, be able to eat up into 30 pounds heavier unless you're using some drugs that I typically would not recommend to anybody, even on the untested side, if you're comfortable with drugs. But the biggest difference here is like understanding that you're going to have an athlete who probably cut, let's say on average, 15 pounds. I would say 15 pounds is a nice little average for the 24-hour weigh-in, especially if you're going on an aggressive cut. Most people seek that 24-hour weigh-in as a place to say, well, I want to be in this weight class. And if I'm in this weight class, I could set this world record. And it's usually about records, total records. It's not, and it's about like really pushing the boundaries of like that dot score, because you're not going to obviously weigh in the same in a 2-hour weigh-in and make up that distance with the 24-hour weigh-in. So I would definitely say like for a standard, I would say that when you're trying to recomp from a 24-hour weigh-in and you're doing it aggressively, take your time drinking your water. You don't want to obviously drink your water the minute that you're done weighing in. You don't want to chug it because then you're just going to mess up your entire internals and your body's going to cramp up and your stomach's going to cramp up and you're just going to get really uncomfortable, and it could ruin like that whole 24-hour gist of things. So I would highly recommend like sipping on water early on after that weigh-in. And then after about like an hour or two of sipping, then you can introduce your food, because then your body's ready for the food. It's funny, me and Rob were talking about this. He asked me a question and I just happened to be on the phone, so I called him. I figured he was on the phone, and I was like, you want to keep the protein relatively low when you're getting into that position of recomping for the 24-hour, but you want to obviously utilize it in order to slow down digestion. So when you're using that protein, it's not necessarily to like recover those muscles. It's to kind of put you in a position to slow down digestion, to make sure that your body's not just churning through food, because then you're going to end up starving, and then you're going to end up having to eat a ton and a ton and a ton, and you're going to get sick and you're not going to feel great. So obviously there's like a bunch of different ways to go about it. I would say you want to hydrate first and foremost, and then you want to get your food in as you go. Keep the fats healthy, keep the protein in the middle ground, low area. And you want to really prioritize those carbs and recomping those minerals. But in a 24-hour weigh-in, you're going to get the chance to like really, really recomp harder. You're probably going to put another 10 pounds on to 12 pounds on the platform, as opposed to when you're competing in a 2-hour weigh-in, you're probably only going to be able to put on like 2 or 3 pounds. And if you're putting on more, you're probably going to get yourself sick and not compete how you want to. So that's kind of like a long gist of it. Try not to ramble because there's a lot that goes on here. It's pretty nuanced, but big difference in terms of like you're going to be on platform, in that 24-hour weigh-in way heavier than you were on your weigh-in, and the difference between a 2-hour weigh-in is going to be major difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the biggest things that you kind of let me know about was kind of what you said in the beginning, where you're like, don't be an asshole. Like, don't
Yeah.
go food in your mouth. You have this opportunity to gain all of this weight back.
Yeah.
And you have this opportunity to have a little bit more aggressive of a cut and
Yeah.
prove to yourself and kind of, I see this, and we'll talk about this a little bit more when we get into the tested versus untested side of things as well.
Yeah.
But this is kind of the first outside of the 2 hour weigh-in drug tested side of things. Even if you are drug tested in USPA or drug tested in IPL, or I forgot what any
WRPF,
any of
all, yeah.
those. Yeah. This is the start of athletes starting to push the envelope of what's
Yeah.
possible for the human body.
Yeah.
You're starting to push the envelope much like guys in the UFC do. I mean, that
Yeah.
the UFC weight cuts, if you look at the literature, everything on weight cutting for a large and like water cutting and water loading and everything, it's all based around the UFC, and boxing, kind of these combat sports. And that's where you really start to push the envelope of what the human body is capable of. And on the flip side of that, you can find out what is really not okay to do.
Yeah.
And, like you said, one of the biggest things is not just shoveling food in your mouth.
Yeah.
The way, after you explained everything to me, the way that I looked at it was it's essentially a 2 hour weigh-in, recomp strategy that you just pull out
Yeah.
12, right?
Yes,
Like you're
exactly.
doing
Actually,
the
that's
same
such a
exact
good,
thing, but
yeah.
you just
Yeah.
multiply every time by 12. So
Yeah.
that first, 5 to 10 minutes that you're supposed to be, getting that 32 ounces of fluid in, the minerals, all of those things, you're really just trying to knock that in. It's okay. Multiply that by 12. 5 times 12, it's roughly 60. So, okay, we
There you
got an
go.
hour.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really, really, it's just extrapolated out. And I
Mhm.
think where, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, where a lot of people go wrong with this is they think, oh, I have this opportunity to now gain all of this weight back. I'm going to maybe
Mhm.
push the envelope a little bit too hard. And then they can flip
Yeah.
to the other side and have adverse effects. I mean, like you said,
Yeah.
start feeling bloated. You shoved a lot of food in your mouth in the first 4 hours, and all of a sudden you don't want to eat for the rest of the night because you can't. It's actually
Yeah.
like distress, and it's
You can ruin it in the first couple hours.
yeah.
Yeah.
Have you had any experience, either personal or with a client, where you've seen or even at a meet that you've competed at, where you're like, oh wow, that guy really fucked up,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
I'm definitely taking something away that he did and not doing it. Have you seen any of that stuff? Have you experienced any of that stuff personally?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not gonna say any names just for
Yeah,
sake of
of
like
course,
privacy,
of
like
course.
just to not embarrass anyone. Um, but I've had a bunch of experiences where even for myself, like I wouldn't say like I've had like a bad experience, but I'll say I've had a really rough cutting experience when I was really young. This is kind of when the guidance wasn't really quite there, and I just kind of like pushed the envelope. And this is sort of what I say, like whenever I see like I can't judge you like the UFC or combat sport fighters because I'm sure that they're pushing the envelope super hard, but I remember when I was like 20, this is my own personal experience. When I was like 20, 21, I was getting ready for the Power Build Grand Opening meet, and it was an untested meet, lots of heavy hitters. Like it was me, Mags, Nabil Lalo, Nabil, Johnny Kaufman. It was all of us. We were all juniors at the time, which is crazy. And I was like, I really want to win, so I'm gonna cut weight. I'm gonna make 100. I cut like 19 pounds, and I shit you not, like 48 hours, and I was dying. Like I was trying to make weight so hard. I really wanted to win. I really wanted to do well, and it got to the point where like I can't remember the terminology for it, but I got to the point where you can't pee anymore, and if you do pee, it's like little drops of like black. It's like black. And I got to the point where when I was getting really, really close, I woke up around like 4 a.m. the morning of weigh-ins. I was probably like a pound off. I was really, really close. But a pound is tough when you're already pulling out all that water. So I went down. I had this little in my basement. I had this little bathroom that was probably like I don't know, like 8 feet by 8 feet, really tiny bathroom. But what was cool is I had like the shower, and then I had a little heater at the top ceiling. So I turned the heater on. I put the water on as hot as I could, and I just sat down there and kind of like moved around. And I got to the point where I got so screwed up. I ended up making weight, but I got so screwed up that like I went to do a jumping jack, and I guess there was such a lack there of water. I can't think of the words where your muscles and your ligaments and your tendons just kind of like rustle up and they don't want to do anything, almost like a paralysis kind of thing where I can't remember the name. There's a name for it. But I got to the point where I did one jumping jack. I put my arm up and my whole like arm cramped up and got stuck in position. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am so screwed up. So I kind of toughed it out. I had someone drive me to weigh-ins and I figured it out, but like that is an instance where you don't need, like, you're at that point doing way worse for yourself cutting that extra pound to make weight than you're helping yourself. Like I even remember at that weigh in, Nabil, I didn't even know Nabil at the time. I knew of him. He comes up to me with a Pedialyte. He was like, dude, you look down bad. Do you like have anything? And I was like, right now, not on me. And he was like, here's a Pedialyte. You need a Pedialyte. And I weighed in, I drank the Pedialyte, and I was super appreciative. But you could kind of tell when I was at weigh-ins, like people were like, dude, you look like you're dying. And it's terrible. And then I've had other instances where I had another athlete, not of mine, because I'm pretty on top of my athletes when it comes to making weight, and I set a really high standard in terms of like, why are we cutting weight, or
As you
are we
should
breaking
be.
a world record? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, why would I put you through something unhealthy that you don't
Yeah.
need to when it's just going to negatively impact you? But I had a buddy who was cutting really hard, and they wanted to make a certain weight class, and they were about like 3 pounds away, and they were just right there, but they got so sick they started throwing up. They kind of like almost in an essence like everything that they did just shut down their entire body and put them in a position where they were throwing up, they were puking, they got super sick, they had like a fever like symptoms, and they were like, I just simply can't make weight here. And you don't want to do that to yourself because you're trying to compete at a high level in 24 hours, the highest level, the peak level that your body's allowing yourself to. And you're at that point where just for a couple extra pounds, you're going to destroy your body. It's not worth it. One, and I'm sure long term, if you do it enough times, your internals are not going to be really happy with you. So I personally have always kind of gotten to the point where I'm working with Fam now. He's amazing. I would rather cut like 4 or 5 pounds and train, closer to my weight class because I just one little biased because I don't want to be that guy that made 100 at the untested in the untested side of things and cut 30 pounds or 25 pounds. Like I think that kind of takes away from the integrity of your performance. Like I would rather do it a similar style. I have the 24-hour weigh-ins, but if I was to like start my own federation, I would love to do 2 hour weigh-ins for the untested side. I think that's something that I would prefer for the integrity of the sport. Just to you make the standards similar. We're already taking drugs and we're already taking steroids that help us perform at a higher level. I mean, what 2 hour weigh-ins aren't going to hurt us. Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. I've had not a similar as extreme of that. But the last meet that I did, I did not realize that my scale was off
Oh,
by like a pound. And I, got up, I think it was like 3:30 in the morning. Weigh-ins were like 7 a.m. because God knows why they love doing that to us.
yeah, yeah.
And I was hot bathing, and it was like the first time that my
How about the
wife,
best?
yeah,
Best.
it was the first time that my wife had seen me like cut weight in like a pretty brutal way. Every other time she had traveled in for a meet, so she didn't really see the process or whatever.
Yeah.
And I walk into the bedroom and I'm like, all right, I'm there. I'm like 82.45. Like I made
Oh
it.
my God.
And she looks at me, she goes, you're white. And I'm like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. And she's like, no, like you're like a ghost. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh shit. And so,
Yeah.
we got to weigh-ins. That was fine. I ended up having a good meet. But it's never really worth it, in my opinion. I think that's like the biggest thing. Again, there's always the extreme sides. We see the extreme sides in programming where it's, we're pushing these very, very high, comp frequencies. I've talked to people
Mhm.
on this podcast about that. And, I'm sure that there will be a time and place where we'll see extreme sides of cutting weight.
Yeah.
It happened probably at the Sheffield this past year
Yeah.
with Kiel. I mean, he went down an entire weight class.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
so
he's
I'm
not a
sure
big
that
dude.
was not a very easy water cut and gut cut to move
Oh
down
yeah.
from, and it was probably very brutal. But again, we're talking about extremes, and we're talking about
Sheffield, we're talking. Yeah.
we're talking about $40,000 prize pools where
Yeah.
people are making the GDP of their entire country and
I can validate that. I can
yeah,
validate it for that, but I can't
yeah,
validate it for a local meet where there's no money
exactly,
prize. I can't.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Now we've kind of alluded to the tested and untested side of things. Before I dive into that, the last question that I wanted to ask about weighing in, and this kind of maybe bridges the gap as well.
Mhm.
Weighing in for a 24-hour weigh-in and kind of that cut process and the recomp process, as well as the kind of training and prep and tapering that's involved in this.
For sure.
Because obviously with an untested lifter, your absolute intensity barring that they're actually a good lifter, right, is going to be
Yeah.
higher than the average person in the tested categories.
Yes.
Percent 1 RM or whatever, it's that taper probably hits a lot harder for
Yeah.
a tested guy. When it comes to kind of the strategies you use for cutting weight, is there anything that differs from the tested side, or is there anything that you actually have pulled from one into the other, or vice versa, from tested to
Yeah.
untested or untested to tested? And then to follow that up on the training side of things, is there anything that changes with a 24-hour weigh-in with a taper that doesn't with a 2-hour weigh-in?
Yeah. So, might hurt some feelings on the untested side here. Not aiming to do that, just speaking from my own experience. I've always been kind of that untested guy that was coached by like the little dudes. Like and I know like some people are like, oh, why are you getting coached by someone who doesn't have this experience? I think that's utter bullshit. Like I get coached by Brad Gilliard, and I'm probably 6 inches taller than him and 100 pounds heavier, whatever. Like he's the best. Like I can't speak any more highly of him. And in that essence, where it's like, I will say that I've gotten so much more significant information and significant, I want to say like levels to my coaching game from the tested side. I think that the untested side lacks, there's something that kind of like plagues that side of powerlifting, and I think it's a egotistical thing. Maybe like it's my way or the highway, or I don't want these little untested guys or these little tested guys to like make me feel smaller than I am, type of thing. Because I have learned so much more from the tested guys than I ever have learned from the untested guys. If anything, I have been more heavily proven by the tested guys how quality their style of training is in comparison. And when it comes to my own athletes who happen to be untested, I'm going to be completely honest. I don't think there is a like, if we're speaking programming essence and tapering and periodizing, getting an athlete prepared for a meet, like I'm probably not moving too far away from the way that tested athletes are programmed. The block periodization, the either maybe a taper on the deadlift, maybe on the deadlift, but typically everyone that I have trains into their meets, and typically everyone that I have, unless they're older, like literally older, not even in training age, but like 30 plus, or just chronically fatigued, I'm not going to taper them unless I practice the taper in their actual training. So it's like where I'm going to make up for a taper is going to be like a 5 week block with a wave load and a back end deload. That would be like your deload or your back end deload to make sure that you're healthy at the end of a block. And if that's reliable, why would I change anything going into a meet? If I can see that your macro of whatever 3-4 blocks is working perfectly, and on that third or fourth block, wherever it may be, you're performing at an extremely high level, why would I change anything? There's no reliability in making change to your programming when you're a week out or a week and a half out if you haven't tested it. And I think that's what's where I come to a disagreement with the untested side of things. I think they're big fans of like, training really, really hard and then pulling back really, really hard and then losing acclimation to their training and then shitting the bed at their meets. And I hate to say it, if we put, let's say, a high level IPF meet next to a pro meet like the Ghost Clash or American Pro, and we compare just the lifting cast, you're going to see a ton of red on the untested side, and you're going to see a ton of green on the IPF side of things, because they're competing to win and go 9 for 9. And typically, when you go 9 for 9, you're going to win. And their training is made to bring them into the platform strong and healthy and reliable. And a lot of the guys on the untested side are making risks, making changes last second to their programming because they think there's some sort of fatigue that is there that they magically think exists without reliability or proof. And they think they need to pull back, and then they wonder why they don't come in as strong as they do. I understand like the ligaments and the tendons being affected differently because we're training at higher intensities than our body probably is capable of, but that doesn't take away the fact that there's reliability within programming. And I'm sorry if I'm like ranting against these guys. It's nothing against these guys. It's just though that we need to find that equal medium of we need to have reliable programming to make reliable training to have a reliable meet day. You have to have done it before to be able to do it on a platform. And if it's not reliable and you haven't tested it, why are you putting it on the platform? The most important day of your year, or bi-yearly, whatever or not by the opposite of bi-yearly. So yeah, like the tested side showed me fine what's reliable. use it, test it, find the data. And it doesn't even have to be like by the pound. Like find the data, find what works for an athlete, find what gets them recovered and peaked into a meet, and do it and use it. You know?
Beautiful. I mean, it sounds, from a guy that coaches a lot of tested lifters,
Yeah.
coaches only tested lifters, I should say that.
Yeah.
It sounds very simple because this is everything that I've ever known as a coach, right?
Yeah.
To kind of flip that though, is there anything that you have found from the untested side that you've taken from maybe not meet performances, but
Mhm.
we can talk about maybe the entire culture. You know, we can talk about, what it means to train hard and all of those kind of things.
Yeah.
And kind of these concepts from an untested lifter's culture and mentality that you've taken over and applied to the tested side, because it seems like when it comes to programming and tapering and all of that, the IPF and USAPL and
Yeah.
PA, they're kind of on the cutting edge of all of this because
Yeah.
it is the most competitive at the end of the day, and it's the easiest to get into for most people. So you just have a
Yeah.
larger sample size of
Yep.
individuals to work from. Versus on the other side, it's not that they're stuck in the dark age. It's just that they're a little bit stubborn, and because
Yeah.
of the substances that they take, they can still make progress with maybe suboptimal programming. Uh,
Yeah.
but like I said, on the flip side, is there anything that you've taken from an untested meet or from an untested competition that you've done or coached at, and been like, oh, wow, I think that really needs to go the other way also?
Mhm. Um, I don't know if I'd say from a specific meet or experience that I've had at a meet, but I would say generally, you have to train hard to grow.
Yeah.
You have to train kind of stupid sometimes. Not, I don't want to say stupid. Like I'm the first person to say like I'll periodize my accessories, but not to like a level of neuroticism. But you do have to train hard. You have to train to failure for certain movements, like single joint movements. You can definitely train to failure and kind of like put yourself in a position to grow muscularly. Like your triceps going to recover really hard. Your quads on the quad extension probably aren't creating a ton of fatigue. Movements similar to that, like push them hard and grow. The untested side of things, they're not afraid to push their body. They're not afraid to grow. And I think that they're kind of on that end of like pushing the body so hard that there's a point of no return where the tendon ligaments just are hanging on by a thread. But it's like learn that in accessory movements, you can train hard. And I would definitely say we're gonna probably get on this sooner or later, but like the mentality of an athlete, like they're not afraid to feel like crap and try really hard, if that makes sense. And I think that's sort of something that actually like is a really big negative of the tested side, is that it's not anybody's fault. I just think there's so much information on the tested side of things, and there's so much, I guess, like there's so many. It's funny. I was talking to Brad about this. There's so many adjectives for how you can feel on a training session.
Bro.
Like there's
Oh
so
my
many. Yeah,
God.
yeah, like pop, fatigue, athletes don't know if they're fatigued or if they're flat. Athletes don't know if they're underdosed or dosed too much. Like they feel, they have all these words that they know and they want to always apply them to how they're training. And they predetermine how their training is going to go. And then they're scared to train hard. So it's like, I think part of the untested side that is really strong is that they're not exactly the most neurotic. They're gonna load the bar and they're gonna do whatever the hell it is, and they're gonna do it. And sometimes on the tested side, with care, you're allowed to try really hard despite the way that you might be feeling or the way that you have gaslit yourself into feeling when it's like I'm flat. This is just a bad training session. I noticed it on 50 kilos in my first warm up that I'm flat. So now this whole training session is doomed. It's like, no, like just do the damn session and see how you feel. You never know what could come out of it. There is such a high level of neuroticism in the tested side that I think if we took half of the not neurotic side from untested, it could definitely benefit, especially these younger guys who are eating up at the content that's coming out and the programming content and the nuance between how you're feeling and your training.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that I probably talk about on every single podcast with every single guest that I have. And I don't mean to be, old man yells at cloud moment, but that's kind of where I'm going with this. Training hard is fucking cool. It really
It's
is. Like
fun.
it's so
It's so fun.
cool. It's really cool. And to your point of having all of these adjectives and ways to describe how you're feeling and all of these different things that you just don't see on the untested side because they just know that, hey, a heavy set of 5 is supposed to feel heavy. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know how many people, whether they're clients of mine or not, I've seen them say on a week 4, ultimate week of the block, they've got a heavy double, and they're like, oh
Yeah.
man, that like it felt really heavy on my back. It's like, yeah, dude, it's
It's
99% of your max
yes,
for a
literally.
double. It's supposed to feel heavy.
Yeah.
That's the point. Maybe next time you take that load, because you now have some adaptation, it won't feel as heavy.
Yes, exactly.
That's
Or we'll
that's
we'll raise your secondary or something to make
yeah.
you feel
Oh
better.
no,
Like,
yeah, no. It's just
yeah,
no.
like,
It's supposed to feel heavy.
yeah.
Like, dude, I feel really fatigued the day after my secondary day. Yeah,
Huh.
you're sore. Like that's
You
the whole
did four
point.
by five squats. You're probably a little
Yeah, you
sore.
probably
And some
feel like
leg press.
shit. I would
I
feel
mean,
like shit.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but to that point, I think this is a great way to intro into another thing that you're very, outspoken about, which is developing soft skills as a coach.
Yeah.
And all of these things that we just alluded to are effective communicators with a coach-client relationship.
Yeah.
These adjectives that you use to describe your training, how you can tell your clients to quote unquote stop being a bitch and just train hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, a lot of these things are very hard to navigate for young coaches and for people
Yeah.
that just aren't in the space. I was very lucky. I've talked about this with Marcellus on the last episode as well. I got to coach in person for a year,
Yeah.
at a sports performance facility, and it completely changed how I interact with clients.
Yeah.
Because not just from like a technique and cueing perspective, but from a motivation perspective. It
Yeah.
taught me, what it means to apply pressure to a client. I mean, there's plenty of
Hmm.
times now where I will, text a client on a week 4 primary deadlift, and I'll be like, hey, dude,
Yes.
like
Lock
pressure's
it in.
on, lock the fuck
Let's
in. Like
go.
this isn't
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
any other training day. Like it's today's game day. Everything else was
Yeah.
practice. This is game day.
Yeah.
Or on a third attempt, deadlift or a third attempt squat or a third attempt bench, like, hey man, like this is it. You fail this, everything that you've done. Obviously, some people don't respond to this, but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
like everything you've done up to this point is for fucking
It's
nothing.
for this.
Like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
for this.
Yeah.
When it comes to how you've been able to maneuver that,
Yeah.
what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned, and maybe some of the best things that you've been able to apply on both this is a client that maybe needs to be spoken to in
Yeah.
not a softer tone, but just
Arm
a
over the
less
shoulder.
aggressive tone. Yeah, the angel and the devil, essentially.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. So all right, I'm gonna start with this. Like soft skills is something I'm extremely passionate about. Like most of my content surrounds soft skills. Like I started a series that I haven't really gotten to continuing. Life has been pretty crazy, but soft skills for me are so important. And it starts from an early framework of I was a soccer player growing up, and I was pretty talented, but I wasn't actually I shouldn't say that I wasn't that talented, but I worked really hard. And I remember my first instance with my coach who had terrible soft skills. It worked for me, but he came up to me and said, "You're fat," and I was like, "Yeah, man, you're right." And he was like, "You're never going to be a varsity soccer player if you're fat." And I was like, "Oh wow, okay, interesting." So like for me, that hit me hard. I went and started doing wind sprints forever, and I would 5 a.m. put every layer of sweatpants, socks on that I could. I'd run a mile, train really hard at the gym. That's what got me into the gym. And then I ended up, long story short, TLDR, I became an all-state soccer player by developing that work ethic from that one significant moment of my coach calling me fat. And I know it sounds like stupid, cringy, but like that was one of the sort of pillar moments of my life where I heard the right thing from my coach. And sometimes those few words can make a really big difference. And then from there, I became the captain of my soccer team. And I kind of learned that as a captain, like not everybody's going to mesh with you really well. And you kind of have to almost like, and I hate to say the word manipulate, but you have to manipulate the way that you speak to certain people in order to get the most out of them. And I learned that at an early age in high school when I was a coach. And then I also, while I was in high school, got bullied pretty frequently for powerlifting. And that
yeah.
really
Me
put
too. Me
I got
too.
built, dude.
It's crazy.
I posted myself in a singlet one time, pulling like 525 at like 17, whatever, and I was really happy about it. And I was in a singlet. I expected to walk in a homeroom. I've talked about this before. I walked in a homeroom expecting like everybody like, wow, that was so strong. And everybody was like, that singlet was silly. You look dumb.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
whatever. Like, oh, your silly little competition.
powerlifting
Yeah,
used to not be cool. Like
not at
it's
all.
crazy.
Not at
From like
all. No.
2014 to 2016,
Nope.
powerlifting wasn't cool. I think
Yeah.
2016 to 2020 was like the golden era. I'll always say that. But
Yeah. Oh
2014 to
yeah.
2016, I was
Nope.
a junior to senior in high school. All of my friends were bodybuilding.
Yep.
I loved powerlifting. They made fun of me, like
Yeah,
straight up.
exactly. Yeah, and I got bullied really hard, and honestly, like I was kind of a kid who talked too much, so I probably also like did it to myself. I was kind of goofy looking. If you ever like see what I looked like when I was 16, 17, I was goofy. But I got made fun of, and I kind of like never wanted to feel like that. But like I never was spiteful or like notched back at it because like I always felt like there was something in me that was like better, if that makes sense. Like I almost like had empathy for people who were bullying me because I was like, yeah, you're laughing right now, but when you're 25, you're going to be like doing something you hate, and when I'm 25, I'm going to be doing something I love, and I'm going to be fine. So I was almost like empathetic for them, but that's besides the point. And I never loved feeling bullied, regardless of how I felt in that moment. And for me, when I see athletes that need someone, a mentor, a coach, a person that is overlooking their progression, having the right person for them to like walk them through these moments of high school, college, whatever it is, these hard moments is so damn important. So having the ability to speak to each athlete as if they're important and necessary and sort of like they are important, and I feel like some people think that they aren't important, and you being that kind of beacon for someone can one not only make a great athlete out of them, but like leave a long lasting impact on their entire life. And I think that is like so incredibly important. I think on a further than sports sort of essence, like I think that it is so important for me as a coach to give my athletes everything. And I don't want to sound like cringy, but it's almost like magical what you can do with an athlete when they feel believed in and when they feel like the person that is in charge of their progress cares and genuinely wants to see them flourish, not only as a person but as a power lifter. And sometimes like you have to put yourself in their shoes in order to get the most out of them. You know, whether it's an athlete that like is a bit neurotic and you have to start to teach them how to like be a bit neurotic without overstepping that boundary of making them feel bad for being neurotic, you know, or that athlete who is like a football player who just wanted to go ham and they get mad at you for saying, hey, you can't be going ham all the time, you're going to hurt yourself. So you have to like kind of like learn how to walk on ice to then sprint with them, or ice let me say like walk on ice to then learn to ice skate with them, if that makes sense, because it's about learning how they're going to respond to what you have to say, and learning how to apply principle of powerlifting while giving them a place psychologically to create it and make it applicable to their progression. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that was beautiful. I appreciate all the background, dude. That was
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
super insightful. One of the biggest things that I always try and remind myself about is putting myself in my shoes back at 20 years old.
Yes, dude.
At
Yeah.
20 years old, I was like 2 years into the sport competitively. Like I said, I started kind of training when I was like 16,
Mm.
17, but didn't
Yeah.
compete until I was like 18 or 19. So at 20 years old, I was in the sport competitively for 2 years. I felt like I really had a grip, but I hadn't really started coaching yet.
Yeah.
And I remember looking up at the time I was coached by Joey Flex. I was coached by one of the best coaches to ever grace the sport.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
still have a really good relationship with him, and I can't thank him enough for what he's been able to do for me just as a man
Yeah.
and as a coach and as an athlete. But I remember looking and talking with him, responding, and it was like I would look forward to those moments. Not because I was like, wanting to be buddy buddy with him or anything, but
Yeah.
it was because like, oh, that's my coach. Like I
Yeah.
trust him. I really believe everything that he says and all of these
Hmm.
different things. And I aspire to be a coach too, and a lot of other, athletes do that, you might coach or that might be listening to this. And I think as somebody now that coaches, I've got a roster of 25 guys, guys and girls, and guys and two girls. Um, Shout out Faith and Martina. And I try and remind myself, like, hey, these people are probably not to toot your own horn, but they're probably looking at you in a very similar light, where they're
Yeah.
like, this guy knows a fuck ton of stuff. I don't know anything. Like, I'm gonna trust everything that he
Yeah.
says. And if
Yeah.
you have an athlete that fucks up and you don't have those soft skills to communicate that with them in a way that is going to be beneficial
Productive. Yeah.
and productive, then it can completely shut down that entire kind of point of view that they have of you. And it
Yeah.
shuts down their trust. And trust, in my eyes, is one of the
Everything.
biggest things in a coach-client relationship, if not the biggest thing. You can have
Yeah.
whatever programming, whatever load selection, sets, reps, accessories, exercises, anything. It can be, 100% correct, like you just figured it out. But if you lose the trust of the client, none of it's going to
Yep.
work.
Yep.
I
Yep.
guarantee it,
The
because
predetermination.
they're gonna come in and go, what the fuck does this guy know? He shut me down. Like,
Huh. Yeah.
fuck these 4x5s, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
bullshit.
This is too much volume. I'm
Yeah,
hurting.
this is too much fun. He
Yeah.
doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
All of that to say, if you are a coach that has somewhat struggled with that, just remind yourself of the position that you've put yourself in.
Yeah.
You're the only person that can kind of help these people with those problems, especially they have hired you for a specific reason. I say this on all of my inquiry calls. One of the core tenets of Escalate is strength. If I'm not getting you stronger, I am not doing my job.
Yeah.
Alongside that, I try to get my athletes very mentally strong. If I cannot
Hmm.
get you mentally strong, I am not doing my job.
Yep.
This sport
Yeah.
is
That's
fucking
awesome. I
personal.
like that. Yeah.
And so if you can't provide that for your clients, fucking fire me, right? I'm
Yeah.
not doing what I need to be doing. I'm not
Yeah.
fulfilling my duty as your coach. So sorry, I ranted there for a little bit.
No, that's great. I love it. I think that we're having like a good moment. I think we're having a good
Yeah,
moment.
yeah. But I mean, when it comes to the specific things that you see a lot of powerlifting coaches nowadays, obviously there's more of them than there ever have been. The
Mhm.
quality of them is higher than there ever has been,
Yeah.
like a normal distribution. When it comes to what you see people struggling with on a soft skills perspective, what are maybe some of the biggest things, and what are some things that you've done to be able to better yourselves in those categories?
Yeah, so um that's a really important topic, I feel, and I think one of the biggest soft skills, if you want to call it a soft skill, it's not really, I think it's not how you interact with athletes, but it definitely will create kind of stepping stones for you to react to certain situations. But I think it's accountability and self-awareness as a coach, because you have to have the ability to say I was wrong. You have to have the ability to say, if I type it like this, are they going to respond like this? Or if I send this voice message with this tone of voice, are they going to respond it like this? I know our job is not to be therapists. Our job is not to walk on eggshells when we're talking, but our job definitely is to make sure that athletes are adhering to what we have to say and understanding and having healthy communication with us. So it's like, if you don't have self-awareness within how you're communicating with athletes, and I've even had moments where I've typed feedback kind of maybe a little bit aggressively because I was upset or I was frustrated with someone. And then I looked at it. You have all the chance in the world to just hit the backspace button and then refigure out how you want to communicate this, because that self-awareness is so important. Like you said, like that trust is so damn important for an athlete to do well. And when that trust is lost, you borderline might as well be coaching yourself there. So it's like, you can have a moment where, like, I had a moment recently with an athlete. I'm not going to say their name or anything, but we definitely had a moment where I probably talked to him like an asshole, honestly. And he was like, "Hey, dude, you kind of talked to me like an asshole." And I was like, "You know what, dude? You're right. I did, and I'm sorry about that." And I need to take accountability there, where it's like moments like that are growing opportunities. Like, obviously, you don't want to initially talk to someone like an asshole, but if you do it out of emotion one time, it's still not okay. But you have the ability to say, like, either go, no, you are being a asshole within your training, or I can say, hey, listen, this is what I saw from your training. This is the decision you made that I didn't agree with. It upset me. It doesn't make it right the way that I responded to you. So I apologize to you for that. But we have to have this conversation to make sure that we're on the same page here. Because if you don't have that self-awareness to be able to have those conversations, trust is lost, the relationship is lost. And that relationship with you and a client is not going to work out. And also self-awareness to say I was wrong within a program, self-awareness to overview your program, and accountability to say I was wrong, because not for nothing, when my athletes fail, in my opinion, it's my failure. I can't say I have one athlete on my roster that like has had a bad meet or had a bad block, and I've been able to say, like, or I haven't been able to say, like, I'm going to fix this for you. If I need to go in your program and change numbers, tonnage, sets, reps, I'm going to do that for you because I have to get this right. And if I fail an athlete, like, I'd rather fail an athlete on the programming end of things and be accountable than fail an athlete and make them feel like they're not important. Because if you make an athlete feel like they're not important, they might as well have another coach. That's my opinion. Some athletes don't need that. That's fine. But I don't think there's any athlete on my roster that I would allow for them not to feel important, regardless of their dot score, their level of an athlete, their age. It doesn't matter. So yeah, I would say something that most coaches should uh, probably work on is being wrong and being okay with being wrong. No, let me not say being okay with being wrong. Learning that you are wrong, being understanding that you are wrong, and fixing when you are wrong rather than blaming your client. Because a lot of coaches like to blame their clients, and they're probably coaches that are doing this whole coaching thing for the wrong reason, because you are the leader. You are the leader of the pack. The pack just follows you. So if you're not putting yourself in a position to lead your athletes in the right direction, whether it be mentally, psychologically, you're not a therapist, so I'm not asking you to therapize any athletes, but if you're not putting them in a position to feel like they are being led or that you care about where their destination reaches, you're probably not coaching for the right reasons. And a coach is someone that needs to be willing to be wrong, and a leader needs to be someone that needs to be willing to be wrong. These leaders can be wrong. Just because you're a leader doesn't mean you're always right. But the great thing and superpower about being wrong is that you can become right by learning from that situation. The most ignorant people in the world are the people that are okay with thinking that they're right even when they are wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing that popped into my head when you were going through all of that was a very popular book. I'm sure you've probably read it, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. I mean, I've read it. I think every young male has probably read that book to this point.
I actually haven't read it. I haven't read it, but I guess
I
I
highly
should.
suggest it. Everything that
I'm
you
gonna
were
write it down.
talking about alludes to that book. It's fantastic. And basically throughout the entire book, what Jocko and Leaf both kind of go through are the leadership strategies to take extreme ownership and using extreme ownership as a leadership strategy itself. And what they mean by that is understanding that as a leader, anything that happens down the chain that is a failure is ultimately a reflection of your poor leadership. And it's ultimately a reflection of what you did that was wrong. Client fails a lift. Okay. Either the program, I didn't program them right. Oh, client, gets in their own head and can't do anything. I didn't communicate with them correctly. Oh, client gets injured. Okay. I wasn't able to figure out their programming to train healthy. Yes, we can play the blame game. I'm sure as coaches, we've all been in that situation where we've thought like, fuck, dude, like there's no way this is my fault, but there's always something that you can be doing as a coach.
How can I make this not my fault?
Exactly.
How can I not, I'm sorry. How can I, this isn't my fault, but how can I make it my fault to make you better?
Exactly. And it's second nature to do so. That's just as a human, we don't want to feel shitty about ourselves. It's okay to feel that way, but it's not okay to feel that way and then do nothing about it.
Agreed.
And I think that's what you were kind of getting at. Now, you mentioned it a couple of times, and this is something that you actually talked about. I think it was either a reel or another like soft skills episode thing that you did, where it's maintaining boundaries and understanding, because I mean, as much as as coaches, we want to be able to be there for our clients. We also have to have them understand that, like, hey, like you said, we're not a therapist. I can't help you. Yes, I will be there. I will listen to you. You got broken up with. You are having time in school or work. I understand, man. Like, it's affecting training, blah blah blah. But like, I cannot be your therapist. That's always something that I've had a little bit of struggle with. Just because I either get too invested or I'm like, don't give a fuck. I'm sorry. That's just the reality.
Respect. I respect that.
Yeah,
no, I
it's
respect
like,
that.
I'm your coach.
You didn't get hired as a therapist.
So I don't. Like, I didn't hire a therapist. Or I'm like, damn, dude, that really fucking sucks. Like, I want to be there for you.
But it's probably not within my parameters.
Yeah, right? And so what are some of the things that you've personally been able to implement with your clients that have allowed you to set those healthy boundaries? And what are maybe the top things that you see from an athlete perspective that they can start doing to start understanding what we're kind of dealing with?
I'll be honest, like, I have worked really hard on this, and something that like I almost pride myself on is like I have a relatively large roster. I want to say like I have like 25 people who have been with me for over 2 to 3 years now. And early on in my powerlifting career, or I'm sorry, my powerlifting coaching career, I was working with mostly younger athletes who just saw me on TikTok because I had a cool looking TikTok where I yelled a lot, and they were like, "Oh, he's cool. I'll hire him." But like something that I always was really like something that was so always important to me. And I think I'm only recently validating myself for this now is I never wanted to be like that coach that got hired because like you have a big following or like a viral video, whatever. So as I took on those athletes, I realized these younger athletes, not only are they young, but they probably were like 13, 14, 15 during COVID, so it's like they lacked a lot of situational awareness and the ability to be exposed to like real life situation and real life communication with a teacher or an adult or a mentor, and a lot of them lacked in that area. And I'll say like I have probably 20 athletes that I've had since the age of 18 or 19 that are now like 23, 24, 22-ish area. And honestly, early on in that relationship, I probably was in a position where boundaries were broken. And I was so young in the game of powerlifting coaching that like I sort of was like, no, but I have to be there for them. Like I have to shoulder these feelings for them. When in reality, that's not the case. I don't think they expect that from you. And if they expect that from you, that is unfair to you. However, I definitely think as a coach, I've done a really good job, like um, being able to be there. Like I recently had an athlete go through a rough breakup, and instead of being like, "Oh, how are you feeling? How's this?" Like, first of all, that's not my job. I said, just, "Hey, you have this breakup here. You are young. You can be excellent at the sport, and you can be excellent as a man. This does not define who you are. That's what I'm going to tell you. This doesn't define who you are. Allow this to project you. Don't allow it to bring you down." So if I see that you're not training, if I see that you're not doing your job, if I see that you're not holding yourself accountable as an athlete, that breakup is doing exactly what I think it's doing, and it's bringing you down. And I'm just going to hold you accountable. Hey, are you training? Are you doing this? Are you there for me? Are you there for me because you're paying me at the end of the day? Like, are you there for me in the essence? Like, do I feel like shit taking your money? So I think in a lot of those situations, if an athlete is trusting you with their feelings, you're entitled to like hear it. You know what I mean? Like you can hear it. If you don't want to hear it, you can set that boundary. Hey, dude, this is not for me. I can't help you here. And I've done that plenty of times where it's as simple as like, hey, I appreciate you confiding in me and I appreciate the trust and I want to be here for you, but this is just not something that I can shoulder. It's not something that I can bear because I suffer from like pretty horrible anxiety. So if I hear from an athlete like they're going through something really, really rough, it makes me anxious. So like I'll be straight up with an athlete and say, dude, I really care about, whatever it is that you're going through, whatever object, whatever situation it is. All I can say is that I promise you it will get better as long as you take the steps to get better. But I cannot shoulder this because I will not sleep at night if I am the person that you are going through. And that's not fair on any coach. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the things you did in that message to that young guy, which hopefully he's doing great, is you were
He's doing
able
great.
to, okay, awesome.
Yeah.
You were able to spin it in a way that revolves back to the profession, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It wasn't, oh, dude, that sucks. Like,
Let me hear it. Let me hear it. Let me hear it.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, what's the
No.
drama, da da da, or not even that, but like, oh, dude, that sucks. Are you okay? And then it
Yeah.
just it festers and it continues to go or
Conversation,
whatever. It's,
conversation, conversation.
hey, this happened. This is my job is being your powerlifting coach. I
Yeah.
understand this happened. If this affects you being an athlete, then we have an issue.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
outright telling them that. Like, hey,
Yeah.
if this affects you being an athlete, we have an issue. Because I don't want to put forth effort that isn't being reciprocated on the other end. Not
For
saying
sure.
that, we're, high and mighty and we should expect more from
No.
our clients than we do for them.
Yeah.
It should honestly be the other way around for most.
They're paying you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You are employed by them. I think that a lot
Yeah.
of coaches forget about that.
They're your boss.
Exactly. A lot of coaches forget about that.
Yeah.
But trying to always keep the conversation around training. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, this happened. How do you think it's going to affect your training? Even if you do want to, dive in a little bit further, maybe you've been with them for a little bit longer, so you kind of understand the gravity of the situation. Understand like, hey, this happened. Have you been sleeping well? You haven't? Okay. Let's start brainstorming some strategies so that you can get training in. But
Yeah.
again, what does this all revolve back into? Revolves back into training. It revolves back into supportive powerlifting.
Performance.
Just
Being good.
yeah, it's not just being a friend or anything.
Yeah.
I think I've got one more question on the soft skills thing, and it was what I wanted to ask previously, and I forgot. You had mentioned when responding to an athlete in an emotional state,
Okay.
whether it's they're confiding with you with something that's external or maybe something within training that makes them very
Yeah.
emotional, a failed lift or anything like that, and you're trying to not play the blame game, you're taking ownership, all of these different things that we talked about. It was definitely real. I forgot. I think you were talking to Evan Hawk and a couple other people.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. Yeah.
you had
Yeah.
mentioned you had mentioned you always have the opportunity to just delete the message, and you have as much time in the world to respond. Like
Yeah.
we're so lucky being remote powerlifting coaches
Oh, yeah.
that we
Yeah.
have like an absurd amount of time to respond to this and still have
Mhm.
it be okay. If we're a personal trainer, if we're an in-person strength and conditioning coach, if we're at a college or a professional team, something like this happens to an athlete on the field or in the weight room, you
Yeah.
have to know right then and
You
there
better
how
be
to respond.
nice. You better be really
You
good at
better
that.
be fucking good at it.
Yeah.
Or else you're immediately going to lose that trust versus in remote
Yeah.
coaching, you have this time to respond. I just want to allow you to maybe, elaborate on that a little bit, give your
Yeah.
perspective,
I
because I
love
think it
this
was a huge
question.
thing.
Yeah, I love this question. So a big thing there, it's like I have every athlete on my roster is a different human being. What gets them going is different. What gets them to train well is different. What gets them to get out of a rut is different. And I, in a sort of way, hold myself accountable to make sure that I am practicing that for them or helping them practice that. So like I have an instance where I had an athlete who is killing it right now, that she was very neurotic when it came to the deadlift. And that's like a movement that I think for a lot of athletes, that seems to be like a troublemaker. For me, it's a troublemaker, but I have an awesome coach, but that's not related. But she had a really, really rough session, and kind of crashed out, kind of like had a moment where the message was very long. And I overlooked it. I saw it. I said, I'm going to let her deal with this on her own, because if I continue to be super offensive with the way that I'm treating the situation, this is always going to happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you cool down. I'm going to let you chill out, and I'm going to let you um, deal with the consequences of the way that you're feeling, or I'm going to let you smooth it out on your own, and then I'll see how it goes. And then I want to say like a week later, we probably had a block overview, and she goes, "I noticed that you did that, so I appreciate you for that. I noticed that usually you'd be really offensive with me, and you would usually like help me walk me through it, or even like give a random call, because I do that with some athletes when I see that they're really struggling, not mentally, but like with an actual movement. I'll try and like do some tech work with them. And it's just kind of one of those times where I was like, no, let me let you learn. Let me let you learn on your own, and let me let you be autonomous here. Where then I have some other athletes who I can be a bit more aggressive with, where my one athlete, Ronaldo, who I don't think he'll care if I say his name, um, super high level guy, 512 dots, like really, really good athlete. I've been coaching him for like 3 years. I coached him from like a 440 or 450 dots to a 512 dots. Super proud of that. Freak athlete. I think I could write his program on crayon and he'd be fine. But he's a very like hands off kind of guy. And but he's a freak athlete, like where he was a track runner. He thrives from getting pushed and almost like essentially like getting bullied into doing great, you know? So it's like I'll never see a lack of effort from him, but I have had moments of seeing his training just be kind of sort of in a rut. And where I'm going to bring up like what we were talking about with Evan and Reggie and Peter. He had a really great New Jersey States meet, and he was in the back room talking all this shit to these local level lifters. And I was like, who the fuck are you, dude? Like, I was like you're out here talking shit. Like, okay, cool. Like, whatever. Have fun. Be competitive. We're supposed to be competitive. This is a sport. I think shit talking is fine on a healthy basis. But now we're prepping for nationals, and your training looks like garbage. So it's like, how are you out here talking shit to these local level guys, and then coming over to the national level, raw nationals, and shrinking up like a little raisin, dude? So I literally said to him, like in my group chat, or not in my group chat, that would be really inappropriate. I said it in our chat, and he sent me his training, and I was like, you are thinking so much about he took a single at 300 kilos or 305. I remember this like yesterday. And I was like, that was fucking terrible. And I was like, do you feel fine? He was like, yeah, I feel fine. I'm just like overthinking. I was like, back off that bar for 5 minutes and retake 305 without thinking, and be aggressive. And I said exactly what I said to you right now. You were at States talking all this shit, and now you're 8 weeks out from nationals, and you're training like a little baby. And he was like, word, heard. And then his prep for nationals was perfect. And he went 8 for 9, PR'd his total, had the best prep ever. And like, even like I visited New Jersey last week for PLU Nationals, and I ended up training with them. My guys always come and train, a decent amount of them that are local in Jersey. I love it. I trained with like 5 or 6 of them that I'm really close with, and Ronaldo's taking a top set of squats, and I let him push it a little bit, and I'm in his ear spotting him, like saying like, "You're gonna get beat by the 110. Like you're gonna lose if you don't push this set. Like this is your week 4. Like make it work." And it's like you could see as I was talking shit each rep that it was like pushing him and pushing him and pushing him, and you could see almost like reps getting better because it like was pissing him off, which made his performance even better. But you have to learn that there are some athletes where you back off from them and they learn autonomously, or there's some athletes where you have to put the arm around the shoulder and be there for them to hear them out, and make sure that they are heard, because them being heard creates that trust, which then puts them in the next session that they're training to do well. Or you have to be that kind of coach that needs to be like, you're an asshole and you're being an asshole and you need to do better. And an athlete might respond to that. So it's everybody's different strokes for different folks, I guess. Like
Yeah.
it just depends who you are and how you respond to different types of feedback.
Yeah, two
Yeah.
beautiful examples of two very starkly different responses.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things, especially for the first one that you talked about, that I actually got from Sean was, I think I kind of pissed away a pretty bad block. It's just poor execution,
Yeah.
pretty much poor everything on my end. And I
Yeah.
was pretty mad. Like this was like the third or fourth block in a row where stuff wasn't really working.
Yeah.
And there was definitely things on probably both of our sides that we could have fixed. Again, not playing the blame game or anything.
Yeah.
But he told me, he's like, I'm going to give you 24 hours. So I'm going to give you 24 hours to feel really bad about this. After 24
Yeah.
hours, you're not allowed to feel bad about this anymore.
I
Like,
love that actually.
that's it. Like
I love that.
you give yourself a set amount of time to be like, if you fail a week, like everybody's going to get to the point at some point, in their powerlifting career, they're going to fail a set.
Yeah.
As much as we don't
Yeah.
want to talk about it as coaches, like it's going to happen. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
Give yourself 24 hours. 24 hours later,
Yeah.
if you still feel like shit about it, we've got a bigger problem.
Yeah.
Because
That's it. Yeah.
then you're dealing with something deeper within an
You hate this sport.
psyche,
You
right?
actually don't enjoy this.
Yeah.
You actually don't enjoy
where
what
it's
you're doing.
like, give yourself 24 hours or 12 hours until the end of the training session to be like, damn, I'm in a pissy mood. I'm really mad. I missed that squat. I missed that deadlift. I missed that bench, whatever. Yeah, I'm a little baby.
Yeah.
And then after that, understand like this is part of being in the sport. This is part of being an athlete, and move forward and continue on. But I think this is a perfect place to end, dude. I really appreciate you,
Dude, of course.
saying all of this and laying everything out for us. We've hit on a bunch of different topics, from
Yeah.
weight cuts to
Yeah.
training hard to lifter psychology. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the opportunity to plug anything, any YouTube, any, Instagram
Yeah.
coaching, stuff like that.
Yeah. So my Instagram is dac.effect. I am loosely taking on athletes. I would say like I have 2 to 3 roster spots at most right now. I sound like that one guy that's like, no, you have to sign up really fast. But I kind of am at a roster cap at the moment until I realize that I can handle it. So if you are interested in coaching, obviously have a job form. My Instagram is Dac the Ripper, which I need to change, but I won't change for a little bit so people can listen to this and then find it. I'm not super active on it. I use it. But that's pretty much it. But I do want to thank you for having me on. I will say, not to extend this too long, but being invited was really honorable for me, because the last 2 people you had on were Sean and Marcellus. So being the person after those 2 names is honestly the coolest thing ever. I have a ton to work on before I can even be considered in a conversation there, but I really would love to be there one day. So this was a major moment of validation, and I'm excited to see this get posted, and I appreciate you for the invite.
Yeah, of course, dude. Like I said in the beginning before we even started, this is selfish for me. I just like talking to people.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, this guy thinks like I like how this guy thinks, and I'm like, let me reach out to
I
him. I
appreciate
want to
you.
talk to him about some
Yeah.
things.
That's very validative, if that's a word.
Yeah, there we go. Well, I appreciate you, brother. And
course,
anybody
man.
that's made it this far, I appreciate you listening. If you can, support by subscribing, liking, commenting, following on Spotify. All of those things definitely help. So please do it. And then, as always, continue climbing.